All right, back in the studio with State Representative Tim Butler here with 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk. I'm Greg Bishop, Representative. It's been a while since we've chatted. I think just before the primary we got together, and we haven't talked since. So
glad to be back in.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And actually, yesterday was a pretty big day as well. What happened?
Yeah, so in Illinois, if the established parties don't have a candidate in the primary, they're able to slate someone and then submit that to the State Board of Elections. And that deadline was yesterday, and so I do not believe a Democrat was slated in my district, so I'll take that as a win, I guess.
So about this process, and I don't want to spend a bunch of time on this, but that seems like a little bit of a bizarre process. Republicans are using it as well elsewhere throughout the state. But isn't that a little unfair to those who, like yourself, had to go out and file tons of signatures?
I completely agree with you, Greg. I think the thing we did change is the fact that now, a few years ago, we changed this where someone who's going to get slated, like the people who filed yesterday, do have to go out and get signatures. Now, this year, it was a lower threshold than what we had to file with. We had to file with at least 400 valid signatures. I think it was 160 some that somebody had to file with. But I agree with you. I mean, there's a process in place. Everybody knows what the process is for primary elections. We could go on forever about the fact that I think our election season drags out too long, which then pushes filing season way too early. I mean, I'll get sworn in January next year, hopefully, cross, and then I got to make a decision by the end of the summer of 2023 if I'm going to run for an election in 2024. And I think that's kind of crazy, and that's something I'd love to see us change in Illinois.
So we could talk changes to election policies all day long. I've got a lot of critique in various places, but regardless of that, let's talk about something else that's going to be happening soon. Special session has not been scheduled yet, though we're seeing some rumblings come together. The Illinois House Speaker yesterday announced 4 different working groups. These are not public committees.
No, they're not.
Talk about that a bit.
Yeah, so this is straight out of the Mike Madigan playbook, in my opinion. We've seen working groups in the past that are not open to the public. They're not available on the website. There's really no process for posting. Our committees, I'm on 7 or 8 committees. You have to post the committees a week in advance. They're publicly available. They're open to the public. They're on the internet. You can submit testimony. You can testify in front of them. These working groups are not that. And then beyond that, I talked to the leader of one of the working groups yesterday and was informed that these are only for the Democrats. It's not Republicans, or at least that's what I was told, that they are just working groups within the Democratic House majority, which didn't seem to be in the Speaker's news release that he put out yesterday. So I find this just an exercise in keeping people busy, which is what Mike Madigan was very good at. When his troops were restless, he found ways to keep them busy, and I think that's exactly what this is. I think at the here we are going into August. I do not believe today, and I could be wrong, that we are going to have a special session. I think it's very difficult, and I think it's unnecessary, to be honest with you. We come back in veto session in November, and I think the Democrats, for whatever they would like to do, the threshold for a vote for something that's going to be effective before next July, which is the only reason you would want to come back into special session, would be 71 votes, a supermajority. They have 73 votes, and I think anything they put up on the board, they would probably find very difficult to find the votes for. So I think this is all kind of an exercise in just positioning the Democrats for the fall's election, and maybe I could be wrong. Maybe we'll go back in a special session, but I kind of doubt it.
Well, and the groups they have laid out here, and I'll just read the headlines, and again, this is from the Illinois House Speaker's office, Democrat leader, saying that he's got 4 different working groups, and of course all the names that are part of these working groups are Democrats only, no Republicans listed. It says Reproductive Health and Dobbs Decision Working Group, Firearm Safety and Reform Working Group, Mental Health Working Group, Social Media and Online Extremism Working Group. That one's interesting, and you've got 3 here that kind of stem around the gun violence that we've seen recently. What do you foresee happening? We've heard rumblings of, maybe enhancing the red flag law. We've heard rumblings of prohibiting the sale and possession of certain types of rifles that might be semi-automatic or take a magazine. What do you foresee happening at the State House?
Yeah, first of all, when I look at those 4 working groups, I see nothing about inflation. I see nothing about people's cost of of living today. I see nothing about the onerous taxes that we have here in the state of Illinois. I see nothing about property tax reform, which are, if we're going to have a real discussion about the issues facing the state of Illinois, those are some of the things I think those of us in the Republican Party would certainly like to see discussions about if we're going to have working groups. I think there's a lot of discussion coming out of Highland Park. I think there's a lot of discussion coming out of the Dobbs decision about what the Democrats in Illinois would like to see done. I would just like to remind people we are basically the most abortion-friendly state in the state of Illinois. I don't understand at this point what we have to do to enhance people's ability to have abortions in the state of Illinois. It's very open in Illinois, and certainly we have, I think, 40,000 abortions in the state of Illinois last year, and I think that proves that we're very open to it. So I'm not quite sure what they would like to do. And the Dobbs decision has left it up to the states to determine their policies on this, and Illinois has determined our policy on this right now. I think coming out of Highland Park, yeah, I think there's some places to have some conversations. I was not supportive of the red flag law, but that's certainly something that I think a lot of people are taking a look at for some potential changes. I certainly think, like you said, looking at some restrictions on rifles is what some people have discussed. I'd like to see what people would like to propose on this. I think when we look at what happened in Highland Park, at the end of the day, I think just like this would happen with the Waffle House shooter, the kid out of Tremont, it's some family decisions that were made that were poor family decisions that ended up in complete tragedies in our country. And I think that's a whole other discussion that we're not having, is that, somebody made a bad decision as a parent and it led to a horrible tragedy. And I think that's something that it's really hard to legislate against. So I'm interested to see what would come out or what might be proposed, to see what would how people think they could move forward on this.
You're talking with State Representative Tim Butler here with Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk. A couple of other issues I want to get to, and we're going to push news just about a minute or two later. But you've got the continued disaster declarations. The governor re-upped another one. I think it was either Wednesday or Thursday of last week, another 30 days. Is Illinois a disaster area?
Well, some people would say Illinois is a disaster on a few things, but this would make a great working group as well. I mean, let's talk about the governor's executive powers. Look, I'm the guy that introduced the bill right off the bat that said the governor gets 30 days on an executive order, and then he has to come to the General Assembly and get a supermajority vote. I think the governor has gone far too overboard on his executive orders on emergencies. I don't know what the reason is to continue emergency declarations for things today, other than trying to get, I would assume trying to get federal money would be my only assumption for it. But I think, again, this is something that people need to remember going into the fall election. You got a real choice here on people's views when it comes to emergency orders, and I think this is something that we have to rein in from the governor's powers. He's gone way overboard on this stuff.
And then finally here, State Representative Tim Butler with us. The announcement possibly today, I don't know if there's going to be an announcement or what they're doing up in Chicago, but nothing was on the governor's public schedule. However, on the Chicago mayor's public schedule, it had the governor in attendance for some kind of announcement. Apparently some DNC figures are going to be there. Should the DNC announce Chicago as its destination?
Well, that's not up to me as a member of the Republican Party, but certainly Chicago has a checkered history with hosting political conventions, especially with the Democrats. Look, I think no matter what, I don't care if it's a Republican convention or a Democrat convention, bringing it to Illinois is a good thing for the focus on Illinois and really the dollars that are spent on it. And right now, Chicago needs some dollars spent on it in downtown Chicago because people don't want to go to downtown Chicago right now. That's for sure.
And should the governor run for president?
Well, I don't have a lot to say on that either, but if I'm the governor, I'd be focusing on this fall's election and not what I'm potentially want to do in 2024.
State Representative Tim Butler, always appreciate you having time.